Yo, what's poppin'? So I'm here with my power rankings after week 5, after the kickoff clash tournament has completed. The stage is done, and this is my thoughts on the power levels of the team. So above me is my power rankings from last week going into the tournament. Um, Teams on top did not win them, but uh, I'll start off with the East because they finished the tournament first, so it makes sense. Um, so I will just remove my bottom 3 because nothing changed. And so now, moving up or moving down is the Hangzhou Spark. It has to be the Spark. They're the first out of the tournament, and it doesn't. It's not just like, oh, you look at the tournament, whoever's first out is the worst out of the tournament. It's like, yeah, but the reason that Spark fell out of the tournament is also important here, and the biggest reason is their inflexibility. Yes, they were really good at the Zarya comp, but only being able to win the maps with the Zarya comp's favorite is not going to let you win the tournament. Unfortunately, they lost faith in Gushue. Gushue not even playing at all, and or not playing at all in the lower bracket, and it shows that they see their weaknesses, but it doesn't matter if you see them if you can't like fix them, and they couldn't. So moving on to a team that has went up in the power rankings. It is the Philly Fusion. Now you might think, what? They came second. Yeah, but they got hard rolled and they beat Shanghai and they beat Spark. So they have a weird thing where they beat Shanghai and Shanghai look awful against them, but Shanghai look good against every other team still. It's so weird. I don't know what Fusion have them figured out or something, but to me, in the grand scheme of things, just because you can beat Shanghai doesn't make you better than Shanghai. Like you can beat them, you win that matchup, but that doesn't make you stronger overall as a team, in my opinion. And I still would pick Shanghai over them against most other teams, right? So it's just a little, it's odd that that Philly beat them so consistently all the time. But I would still rank the Shanghai as a stronger team against them. Just look at that the finals compared to the losers finals. It was such a better game because Shanghai was so much closer to Seoul, and yet somehow, whether it be Philly's inconsistencies or whatever, uh, Shanghai is better than them. And above them is of course Seoul because yeah, of course there is. So Seoul win the tournament, look spectacular. They lose to Shanghai, but they beat them in the end. Both these teams very close right now. I'm going to put Seoul slightly ahead because Shanghai does have these moments where they just collapse and they just look awful for no reason. Seoul didn't have those moments. Uh, we've seen them patch up any weaknesses we thought they've had, and they have to be the best in the East right now. They win the tournament. Like it's just how it is. So moving on to the West, I'm going to raise the bottom 4 because none of these guys made any changes in placements because, or I guess Washington went above Boston. Spoiler. So I guess there's that because I did rate Boston higher than Washington at the start, but I have to give Washington the edge after taking the shock to 4, to 5 rather. So there's a little flip flop there, but other than that, the teams that don't play, they can't move. Well, they can move. Teams can go above and below them, but they themselves will not change their ranking. They just can't. But I thought Washington playing against Shock, taking them to 5, it showed that they, like, of course, we know they still have the inconsistency issues. They immediately lose to Florida, right? But I don't know. I still think they're better than Boston, probably, right? Moving up, South London Spitfire, no change there. There can't be. And now we have the Toronto Defiant coming in at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the bottom, putting them at what? That 7? Yeah, puts them at 7. So I had Toronto 4th. Why are they 7th now? Because they just aren't it. I don't know. The middle of NA was super mixed up for me last week. It's super hard to rank them still, even. But the one thing I'm sure of is Defiant are worse than the teams above them. Their Zarya comp looked very good against Dallas in one map, and then it was awful. They lose to Houston in 4. Not a spectacular performance there either. And until they figure out how to incorporate the Zarya comp mixed in with the Winston comp, because I still think they're underplaying the Winston. That Finale looks great on Tracer. I like Muse on Monkey, and I don't know why they believe in the Zarya comp is better, probably. But for this team, I still can't I cannot think it's safe to just one trick it. I would still opt for the monkey in places where it's available to, and KDG just does not agree. Moving up a slot. Actually, I guess Houston moved down a slot because they're number, what is this, 5, 6? They're number 6, and last week they were number 5. So I guess Houston moved down, but that's just how it is. Uh, it's just exactly what we expect. We see the Doomfists, and that's really it. We see them play the Zarya comp with Piggy. It's not spectacular, and it's pretty much exactly what we expected. The other teams just look better, and they kind of finalized where Houston are to me as a mid team. Uh, one drop isn't huge, but it is a drop. Moving up, number 5, the Florida Mayhem. They go up from 6. Uh, they beat Washington, and that's it really. They beat Washington. They lose to Shock, I believe, was it? Or Atlanta. They lose to Atlanta, and then they beat Washington, and then they lose to Shock, right? So, no. Dallas? I don't remember. I don't remember. Yeah, then they lose to Dallas in the losers bracket. And you expect them to lose to Dallas. I thought they would beat Atlanta, but Atlanta proved they are better than getting boomed. Uh, sometimes. But I think Florida looked really good, and we still haven't seen them beat a really strong team. All their wins still coming from the bottom 5 of my power rankings, right? It's a very odd situation where their schedule just makes it hard for them to prove themselves, but that they passed the eye test, right? Someone still looks great. Hydron looks great. Surma Jed, basing their entire playstyle around him, looks good most of the time, and it's very hard to actually find like an error in how they're worse than like Houston and Toronto. Like how are they worse than them? I don't know how they would be. So for that reason, they have to be above them in my eyes, even despite still not having great performances. No, not they're having good performances, but they're not beating great teams or good teams even. But they're still going to be there. And moving up, number 4, kind of expected, the San Francisco Shock. They come fourth in this tournament. They have to drop. I was like, oh, until they are proven bad, everything's riding on their win against the Gladiators, and that was true. Atlanta came to play and they beat them. I'm just gonna remove this because there should be no more surprises. So it's what you expect at this point. But the thing about Shock, I still think they're better than the mid-table teams, right? I still have that. Despite coming to 5 against Washington, that's Washington playing good. That's how Washington is, right? I still didn't have a doubt they would lose to anyone else but the top 3. Atlanta coming through. They look great on a variety of compositions. Whenever they're not boomed, they're still a good team. London booming them. They didn't know how to beat the Ryan comp. They turned out and they like figure it out. I guess they understand it better, and they end up placing 3rd in the tournament and 3rd in the power rankings. And Dallas have to be 2nd, and Gladiators are first and foremost. So Gladiators, the main reason they're first, they have the best flexibility at the highest level. And that's it. No other team is more flexible. No other team is as flexible at that level. And it comes from everywhere. It comes from compositions. It comes from their soldier player being able to switch around between Kevster and Patafan. It comes from Ans being able to come in and play a fantastic Widowmaker. And this team has no, like, a lot of these teams just say, oh, this team is good at the Zarya comp but struggles on Monkey. For example, Dallas. So we'll take them to Watchpoint Gibraltar and they'll probably lose. Gladiators don't have any maps like that. So it plays into their favor a lot. They don't care about the maps, which is such a big thing we've seen in this tournament. Going over to the Spark side again in the East region for an example, we see Spark play the Zarya, right? They're good at the Zarya, they're bad at the Monkey. So anytime they go to a Monkey map, you can expect a loss. Same thing with Dallas, kind of. If there's a Monkey map, it should be easier to beat them because their Zarya comp is what they excel at. Gladiators just don't have that weakness, and it makes them so good, and that's why they're top. It's not because they're not better than any team at the composition. Maybe Shock is better at the Winston, Dallas is better at the Zarya, Atlanta's better at the Doom, but the Gladiators can do it all, and that's really where their strength is. And Dallas's strength, I'll go from first to second, whatever. It's still just a Zarya comp. They didn't adapt well to whatever Glads was doing, and the Zarya comp, they still think it's the strongest, I guess, or they thought it was their strongest chances of winning, but it wasn't enough to beat Gladiators at all. It was enough to beat everyone else, though. So, there's that. Anyway, that's my power rankings after the kickoff clash. Maybe some of them, maybe kind of self-explanatory. Maybe I don't need to do this, but I'm just going to stay consistent and do it because why not? There's some things here that, like the middle of the pack is maybe not that clear, but yeah, that's it. Give it a like and subscribe. Have yourself a good one, and deuces.